I'd like to call our meeting to order. If everyone please rise. Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'd like to do a roll call at this time, please.
Mr. Andres, absent. Mr. Bogolino, absent. Mr. Dilo?
Present.
Ms. King, absent. Ms. McKean? Present. Mr. Perini's absent. Mr. Rathbun?
Here.
Mr. Sebastian?
Here.
Mr. Snowden?
Present.
Mayor Hamilton?
Present.
Chief Magbar?
Here.
Okay, thank you. Before we begin with the public participation, the Beaver Borough community found out this past week that we lost another retired police officer. The police officer is Bob Morrison. Mr. Morrison served 30-plus years here in the borough as a patrolman for the Beaver Police Department. And so at this time, if we could do a brief moment of silence. Okay, thank you. At this time, we will open the floor to public participation. So if you would like to speak, please go ahead and stand. And please stand, state your name, and whatever your business might be. So,
Well, it's quiet.
Mr. Thomas.
I have one, if you guys don't mind. Jared Thomas, 186 Taylor Avenue. First and foremost, I hope you all have missed me as much as I've missed you guys since I've parted ways from council.
Thanks for all the cards.
You're very welcome.
You can vote on whether you miss him.
So my question is, it's in regards to the rental registration program. Obviously, I was on council years ago when we first started tossing around the idea. I was on the code enforcement committee when this first got brought up. We were entertaining it. We talked about the IPMC and all that kind of stuff. And then when I got back on council a couple of years ago, we obviously had it still ongoing. And then we voted on this, I think it was towards the end of 2018, and implemented it at the beginning of 2019. As you guys know, you may remember, may or not, but some of the issues that I had from the very beginning, some of the arguments that I had against the rental registration program was basically just once it unfolds, how it was going to kind of pan out. So I own a rental property in town. I had an inspection this past week, and there was 14 violations from my house. So, my concern is not like my particular situation. It's more of, well, I guess I have two questions. One is, I was under the impression that when we voted on this, that the inspection was supposed to be for the interior of the house specifically. Can anybody tell me if that's correct or incorrect?
So, yeah, that is correct. But I think I know where you're going with this. For the exterior, there was something on the exterior as well, correct?
Well, 6 of my 14 violations were all exterior things that was docked. But I know when we voted on this, we specifically voted for our goal was the implementation of this was we want to see what's going on inside the house. We were looking for big picture stuff like hoarding, that kind of stuff, and we directed Dan, you can speak to this. I remember when we debated this, the idea was we want to focus on the major stuff and not nitpick the small stuff. You guys remember we had a debate about the size of your address numbers on the outside of your wall and the wattage of your light bulbs inside, and the idea was we're not going to be going through and nitpicking the small stuff, let's focus on the big issues. Now I had 14 violations in my house, which I think is pretty well kept. I agree with some of them are smaller, like outlets, GFI outlets, stuff like that, but then there's some of this stuff that I think is just way too much government overreach. I think that is not what this was intended, and that's kind of what my, I guess, displeasure is with how this is unraveling.
Hey, Jared, are those violations of existing ordinances for the exterior? Is that what it has been cited?
No, it's also,
or is it cosmetic? Is it cosmetic, or are there actual violations of ordinances?
Well, they're violations of the International Property Maintenance Code, which is what we adopted. But the IPMC is a 500-page document, and that's why when we looked at this, and we originally debated, do we want to adopt the IPMC or come up with our own program of what we want to deem needs to be fixed? And I remember when we looked at it, our solicitor said basically, you want to adopt something like the IPMC because then you have teeth if you need to fight somebody in court. If you adopt your own basis, then you won't be able to fight it properly in court. So then we agreed to do the IPMC. But the IPMC book, it's an international, so it's like this thick. So my concern was, if we're doing this large book, somebody can walk into anybody's house and dock them with a million different violations. But then we said to Dan, let's just focus on maybe 10 or 15 top items and make those what we're looking for. And then everything else, you shouldn't be having somebody go in and nitpick through every single little thing. And I don't know if this is the case with other people, if anybody's spoken to you guys, but I have a pretty well-kept house over there. It's a single two-bedroom house. There's a lady living in there by herself. One of the things he docked was on my upstairs floor, which is there's a 5-foot hallway and there's a bathroom and 2 bedrooms, all within 15 feet. I'm being told that I not only have to have a smoke detector in the hallway, which there is now, but each of the other rooms have to have a smoke detector, all within a 15-foot range. So if any smoke comes out of any of those rooms, that detector in the hallway is going to detect it immediately. But now I have to put 3 more smoke detectors in a small square foot space. That just makes no logical sense if you're going through and looking at this stuff. So on top of that, the exterior stuff, which I'm being told is...
Were you able to talk to Martin at all?
We were kind of texting back and forth. I just got this letter. I knew I talked to the tenant after he left, and she was like, there was a bunch of stuff, which I was surprised. And then he sent me the letter just the other day. I just got this, I think, yesterday or the day before.
Okay. So this is what I know, having spoken with him briefly, is that a lot of times, many of our rental property owners live out of town. They live out of state. So when he does and conducts these types of inspections,
Yeah.
a lot of time it is to make them aware. For example, mold on concrete can be slippery when it's wet out. So he will identify that so the homeowner knows, or the property owner knows, especially if they live out of town, they probably need to get that cleaned up soon, because they want to prevent somebody being injured by slipping and falling on concrete.
So you're saying for a recommendation and not a must-fix situation?
Well, it's something to identify. This could be a problem for you if somebody slips and falls. I would suggest to take care of, like, if it's a little bit of mold on the concrete, I would suggest just take care of it and be done with it, which I'm sure you would.
Yeah, totally understand.
And so when he comes out with that list, and it does seem detailed, and he has done it with others, a lot of times too, that these people who own these properties are living out of state, and they don't even know that maybe they have a wooden steps leading up to a porch. Maybe they have a cracked step. They don't even know about. So again, he's identifying those things that need to be fixed, especially for those who aren't living in town. But others are being given the same types of lists. Yes.
Yeah. And there's a lot. I know specifically my family's had a bunch, right? And look, they had violations everywhere. You gotta fix them. Yeah. Nobody's come to council yet and said,
but my first question is,
they're violations, and it's really not that hard.
When we enacted this, it was to be an interior inspection, not exterior.
That's negative. Mr. Perini can't be here tonight, but he wanted to voice. We had a conference call with him earlier on another topic, and he advised that he had no recollection, because he's a property owner as well, and his recollection that it did cover the exteriors. Ms. Hyman went back through the notes and through the minutes, and never anywhere did it differentiate. We spoke with our solicitor, and he said it didn't differentiate.
Yeah, and I talked to Garen too, and he didn't know off the top of his head, but I was under because I remember voting on it, when we did it, we specifically said this was going to be because we can't see inside the house.
It was IPMC, through the IPMC.
IPMC 2011.
Yeah.
We have, he covers obviously interior and exterior, and our thing was we want to stay away from the exterior. So when we adopted this, the motion.
Now, you're the only one that's saying that, Mr. Thomas. Everybody else, Mr. Sprecher, you keep detailed notes. Do you recall any of that from your?
Be honest with
No.
Because the exterior stuff would fall, in my impression, under what you were doing. So I thought when we adopted this, it was a go.
That's still what National Park Maintenance Code.
But you're separate from what he did, is what my question is.
There's an option.
I'll be honest with you, I don't remember it being specifically for the interior.
It was just, I was.
So that's what I thought when we adopted it, it was let's go in the house, make sure there's no boarding, that kind of stuff.
No, the other thing too, you know, you said that you're here, and Mr. Sebastian had brought up as well. You're the first person to come in, Martin. We've had 635 people register. They inspected 367 and 187 re-inspects. So you're not singled out. We re-inspected 187. And a lot of them are just to bring it, as Mr. Snowden said, to people's attention. Hey, these things need corrected, and everybody, as Mr. Sebastian's saying,
It's bringing up the code.
yeah, they're glad to.
In 30 days.
And if you need an extension, you ask for an extension. We've never denied anybody an extension. We'll work with all the homeowners and property owners to,
Yeah, because I'm sure some of these people who live out of town,
or the weather.
yeah, might come back into town and
Jared, I
correct
think
start.
one of the problems is, when we were talking about the rental registration, we were mostly talking about apartments, which are interior only. If you have a house with an exterior, that's a slightly different case.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the confusion may be. But
Yeah.
if it's a code violation, it's a code violation, whether it's inside or outside. I mean, you can talk to Martin and see if there's any leeway on that.
Yeah, no, that's
but-
fine. So you answered my question. If you're saying it is both indoor and outdoor, that's fine. So then going back to the government overreach, so, and we could talk off, this is my last point. So we have a code for an inspection guy coming in, looking at my back deck, saying that I have little spots of moss growing and that I need to weather protect it, restain it, and redo my back deck. So our government's okay with having some guy come out and tell me that I need to power wash my deck. So that's what our government's entailed to do, is tell people that they need to repaint their deck. I mean, which I was gonna do this spring anyways. The fact that I have some guy coming out and tell me that I have 30 days to power wash my deck and repaint it, that's what this program.
That's a standard letter. That's a standard letter that's filled out, that Martin inputs the information, Debbie sends them out. And we understand it's winter months, you're not gonna be able to put something, just again, as Mr. Stone said, pointing it out to a landlord that lives in Florida, saying, hey, you got this going on this spring, you may wanna hire somebody, just making people aware. It's a standardized letter. It's not directed, it's directly Mr. Thomas, it's how it's worded to whoever these are sent to, the 635 people that registered. So nobody's signaling.
So if somebody wants to appeal this, how do you appeal it? Because there's stuff on here that I don't agree with. And I know we were originally talking about doing an appeals board or some kind of a form of appealing, and I don't think we ever established anything, so.
Well, you're the first one, so we'll give us some time, we'll get with our solicitor, and we can continue the dialogue and make, fill you in on how that's gonna work.
So what I would suggest talk to Martin about each violation. And I would suggest doing that in person.
And which I will do, but
Yeah.
the whole point of me being here is just to say, the biggest threat that I thought about this program was the fact of how overbearing it can be, which I'm seeing firsthand. Now, maybe you have other people complaining about it because they don't know what it was entailed to be. But I remember us discussing this, and the biggest argument was we need to keep this under control, because if you go off a huge code book, it can get out of control and you can start digging people for a million different things.
Would
And
you
I
be
don't
able to-
think somebody telling me the intentions of this program was to focus on big picture stuff, and now you have a guy that's telling me that I have a little chunk of my front step, the concrete taken off, and I have to apparently redo this whole front step because on the side of it, there's a little piece of concrete chipped off. And I can show you guys the picture if you want to see it. That's just too much. It's too much.
Do you know what this list is?
Yeah, the list is the same standardized list for the other 600.
No, I'm saying the list that he was given to have corrected.
Yeah, went through Ms. Hyman. Ms. Hyman typed it up and then sends it out on the borough and Martin's behalf, so. I mean, you have to
Had
talk.
how many people registered?
635.
So, again, if you would talk to Martin, and then if you are not pleased with it, then contact us again, and then, we could ask
Yeah.
our solicitor what
It's
route
not
we
just
go.
about my particular thing. It's
I'm
just
not
the
saying
program
it's about
in
yours.
general.
Yeah.
We were supposed to look at big picture stuff, not moss growing on decks. And that's my argument, is the fact that
Well, and
we as
that's
a board,
why,
we're supposed to rein this in, and I don't think this is a reined-in enforcement of rental registration. I don't think it's what we agreed to do.
well, and again, you know, that could cause it to be slippery. And I think my recommendation would be to clean that off. And he's just letting you know that it's there, because you might not be there every day and you might not even know it's there. So again, part of the program too is to protect the owner of the property as well, to prevent any type of lawsuit because you might have had some moss grown on the deck that you didn't know about. So I'm looking at it from that point as well.
Okay.
I really believe some of these are just recommendations that he's making.
That's all.
They tell you you have 30 days to fix them. If it's a violation, you have to fix it. And I understand you have leeway on that, but it's still a violation that needs to be fixed.
It's
Maybe,
not.
I recommend you do this.
Maybe there's a misunderstanding. You just need to talk to Mark and try and work it out first. And then like Sean says, if that doesn't work out, come back and put the council.
All right, fair enough.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. It was good seeing you.
Thanks.
So the next topic, I'm actually going to have the borough manager speak about a conversation that he had with the Beaver Area School District superintendent, and it's in regards to a pool project. But what I do want to make clear to everyone is, number one, this is a work session meeting where we do not vote on anything. So we would not be able to make any type of decisions here this evening in regards to any type of project that we'll be discussing here tonight. And it is in regards to both the pool that is owned by the borough and the pool that's indoors, of course, with the school district. But again, I want to make it clear that in no way, shape, or form are we making any decisions on how we are going to move forward or anything like that this evening. The only thing that I'd asked our borough manager to do is to discuss the information and the ideas that were discussed at a regular meeting that he has with our school superintendent, which I think is great because, again, we've done projects together with the school district because of their relationship, and I think that's positive for not only the Beaver community, but the whole entire school community as well. So, without further ado, Mr. Magar.
Thank you. The Beaver pool we've needed to take a look at for several years, and just recently we had two different companies come into the Beaver pool, one to possibly do a liner and one to possibly give us a scope of work so we could file for some funding and grants. And in the course of doing so, the contractors didn't want anything to do with the pool. They said that it was a lot more work that would have been, needed to be done. So we have to face it, the pool is starting to reach its end of life, has reached the end of life a while ago, and we keep band-aiding it back together year after year, and just, with a good staff and making it work. Whenever the school district came about, the different articles and some conversation with Dr. Rowe that they were going to move forward with the project, there was some dialogue that went back and forth. Well, part of the information we gathered from the pool from Ms. McKean research, that we're in the same spot. So when you're going to spend X amount of dollars and have a pool, two pools, we're going to build two pools within a year period of each other, whatever the time frame would be, 100 and some yards apart. So is that, yes?
Okay, that's not the conversation that we had with the RVE guy. He was talking more about rehabbing the pool.
Correct.
Not necessarily, yes, we could always build a new pool, but what he did at Robinson was they rehabbed that pool. And he also didn't necessarily say specifically that he would not give us an estimate on a liner. So if we wanted to do that as a stopgap.
That's a different, Brent Dawson, our road department guy, met the guy that you had lined up. Do you remember the name?
Yeah, Mike. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, but from what he had told Brent, that he wasn't going to bid it out, that he didn't want anything to do with it.
Well, I'll confirm that with him.
Okay,
But
that's the information that I was given.
But he didn't necessarily say we needed to scrap the pool. He certainly said it needed work,
Yeah.
But he
What were
didn't-
your exact words when you walked around underneath the pool with Dan Martone a few weeks back? What was that?
Well, he was,
No, when you walked
Yeah,
around
yeah.
the pool, how bad it was, from
Well,
your opinion?
it was, I'm not an expert, Dan. I've never been
Right.
underneath a pool before, so I
Right.
have no idea what is good, what is bad.
Right.
Who has?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, Dan Martone kept saying how wonderful it was. His main thing was that the piping was pretty old.
Right.
And so there was a lot of discussion about just replacing the pipe underneath, the piping system underneath. That may facilitate better,
Yeah.
or less leakage, and something about the skimmers.
The leaks going, the water loss through the,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Right.
So that was the main discussion. Now, Dan was also telling me, well, we've got some OSHA issues under here in terms of how long people could stay in that enclosed environment doing work down there.
Yeah.
So that is a consideration as well.
Sure.
In terms of.
So in the big picture, we're all on the same page, that our pool needs attention. We'll use the word attention.
Absolutely, Dan. No
So-
argument there.
Right.
We really need to
So
think
again,
about doing.
get back on the conversation that I had.
Okay.
So where I'm going with this is it was mentioned to Dr. Rowe that maybe we should look at doing some type of joint project where the pool is now with the school district,
Meaning the outdoor pool.
the outdoor pool. And she said, let me poll the board. And I said, we have a work session, which is today. And I said, I'll run it by our council and see if that's something that they're interested in exploring. And she said, okay. She said, I'll get back to you. And that's about as far as the dialogue has gone with her. Some of you have just now, been made aware of this. I made Mr. Snowden aware of it after I had conversation as the mayor. And I did reach out to Mr. Dealo on another topic and ran this by him as well. So this is, and we have a lot of our council people were off sick. They did call in and couldn't make the meeting. So we're kind of on a skeleton crew. The school would like an answer. Is this something that the borough would like to explore? The big thing is cost. There's 500 questions that need to be answered. Who's going to run it? How's it going to work? So we would have to, like you said, go to these other pools and find all this information out, so we don't reinvent the wheel. But it's just, I don't know, is it something that our council wants to explore? If we don't, then I need to let the school district know so they can continue, with what they've already explored and spent a lot of time and money on. Or
Is the idea that the same company that would be doing whatever they're gonna be doing at the school pool would be doing, is that?
I have no, it's just something we
So
didn't even get
this
that
is,
far.
so exploring would include, of course, a design, exactly what would we be looking at,
Cost.
the cost. But we have to keep in mind too, that the decking on the pool needs replaced, which I'm sure is not going to be cheap. And I can't guess what that would cost either. So, keeping those things in mind, I think the question we need to ask ourselves is it reasonable to explore what these things would cost if we did something combined with the school district to service not only the
So-
school community, but,
In order to get an understanding of what it's gonna cost, we have to hire a firm to do that.
yeah,
So
there would be no doubt about
it's
that.
not about, let's just do it, we need to
Well, there's,
approve the funds at the next
Yeah,
meeting
yeah.
and, put out a bid and hire a firm to do that.
And I think what Margaret's asking, would we already, is that what you're?
No, when I got the email from Deb about the gentleman that came down just to look at the pool liner and rejected that, I spoke with Dan Martone about a couple of things, and I mentioned that to him. And I said, I'm not sure why he said that he wasn't gonna do a bid, but, it may be that he feels that the pool is too far gone, or, And I said, in that event, maybe we don't want to do a pool liner. Maybe we need to be thinking a lot larger, but I don't know whether we need a brand new pool or whether we need to just rehab this pool the way they did.
Well, that's what the study will tell you.
Well,
Yeah.
and this gets me back to, DCNR recommends a number of firms that do feasibility studies, and these things cost about $10,000. And they will come in and they will analyze the problems of the pool whether you need a brand-new pool, whether you need to rehab it, and if you do, here's what you need to do. And they will give us, or if you just need to do certain repairs,
To bring it together, right?
because you don't have the money maybe to do the full-blown thing, what are the most egregious things, or what are the things that are the biggest priority? And if you have that feasibility study, and then you want to go ahead and get a DCNR grant to maybe cover part of what you want to do, you have to have a feasibility study. It has to be done by a company that they recognize as, you know, credible to do that kind of work.
We had one, I
So-
think, 10, was it, Mr. Dilo, 10, was it about 10, 8 years ago?
Yeah, I think it was 2012 that we started looking at it, and there was, council actually put it in the budget that we were gonna shut down.
I remember that. Well,
And then-
only through-
And then we rethought that and brought in a number of consultants to take a look at what was reasonable, what could be done, what could not be done. And we had at least one, maybe two people take a look at refurbishing the pool and consider a redesign of the pool. Well, I think what we found out that these consultants that we had, at least at that time, were much more interested in building a new pool and not nearly as interested in rehabbing the old pool. There was a lot of sentimental attachment at that time.
Sure.
It's historic, and so we went with the route of, we had one engineering firm come in and take a look at the pool, and that was Michael Baker Engineering, and they looked structurally at the pool, and they wrote a report that said structurally the pool is in good shape, it just needs to be maintained. So that's what happened last time, and I think we can kind of expect consultants now, if we say we're either looking at a new pool or rehabbing the old one, they're gonna go towards redesigning to a new pool.
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, if you wanna put in all these amenities, such as zero entry and complete compliance with ADA,
Right.
you're gonna find that,
Well, the other thing about.
Which, any
complete-
major construction, we are going to have to comply with
Bathhouse,
ADA,
right.
yeah,
But it's the bathhouse that's gonna be
Yeah.
a
Oh,
nightmare,
absolutely.
because,
yeah.
you know, you've got all those steps coming
Mhm.
down. How do
Right.
you make that thing ADA compliant? I mean, you're
Can't.
practically tearing it down.
Right.
Our
the
borough can't afford it.
other
Can't do
thing,
it.
the other thing we've got to consider almost as a community, and I think Mr. Madgar brought this up, is that you have two pools there within a couple hundred yards of each other. Are you going to put millions of dollars in each one of those separate facilities? Or do you take a look at combining the two facilities, such as what was done in Rochester, not Rochester,
New Brighton.
in New Brighton? And that New Brighton pool, when I went on the website, it shows that it's owned by the school district. And that evidently access, summer access to the public. I haven't been over there in many, many years, so. I don't-
And it's on school property, which, depending on,
Okay,
I mean-
well, it just seems to me like that's a logical, from a standpoint of bringing the community together, that's a logical approach, is to take a look at having one pool that would serve two purposes, especially if you're gonna put, paper said what, $5 million was the bond
Which is not
issue?
true, by the way.
Sorry.
yeah, that's right. So when they quoted $5 million, and this is what I'm just gathering from people I've talked to and have gone to the meetings, $5 million is much more than what the pool cost would be. There's other things that need to be done with the building itself.
No matter what.
Right,
If they
right.
fill that pool in, that building still needs $3 million.
Exactly.
To do anything inside that building.
And that's my understanding as well. There's the roof and the HVAC.
The
Yes,
ceilings, the
right,
walls.
The
right.
total project's 3 to 5 million.
Right.
They report it as 5 million, but that's.
Right.
So $5 million is
But that's
absolute
not
worst
the
case.
3
full.
million is what we're looking at.
Right.
3.1 is what we're projecting it's gonna
Right.
come in at.
Well, getting back to how would you take a look at this, my recommendation would be to ask the borough manager to go ahead and consider at least exploring with the school district some sort of
So-
something that would make sense to both.
And Mr. Dilo, I'm agreeing with you because, but here's and I have a concern too. I agree with you because really, I don't think it's a harm. We have to spend money on this pool no matter what, or, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, or the pool, if we can't maintain the pool, we'd have to shut it down. Which we would still need to do something in that area if that were the case, which is not the case we would want, because I think over the past couple of summers, our community has shown that they want this pool because of the season passes and things like that that have been sold. But I don't see any harm in us exploring an option to see if it's reasonable. However, the only concern I have is I'm concerned about the school district because I think they are up against it with the time constraints because this is something that they've been looking at for a few years now.
And that's the other, I mean, that's the other thing that you get into, from a timing standpoint, are these things doable? And all the more reason to, you know, take a look at what discussion, at allowing the discussion to go forward.
Mhm.
Maybe we come back with exactly what you're saying. Maybe some of these things are good ideas, but the timing just isn't right that we can't, you know, we're gonna have to go in separate ways. And if that's the case, well, that's the case, you know, but,
At what stage is the school district at with this?
You start HVAC stuff, according to what they told us the other night in the meeting, the joint session on March 15th.
So wait, they've already bid the project?
Oh, it's been, yeah.
Well, we're already too late then.
We're not, so, can I ask?
No. Go ahead, Mr. Thomas, that's fine.
The school board's waiting to see what happens tonight.
Yes.
We're gonna call a special meeting for this
For
Thursday,
yeah.
depending on what you guys say. The problem is, last Monday, this obviously came after we voted to commit to the project and move forward with it. When the discussion came up, there was consensus among some of us, I don't speak for everybody, I'm only speaking for myself, but that if there was an agreement from you guys, we can maybe try to put this, see if the board would approve putting what we've already approved to do on hold and take a step back. But I think the board and the school district is looking more for a commitment from you guys to see if you're seriously gonna entertain doing a restructuring over there, not just a rehab. I mean, that pool, we've talked about this since, Mike Dilo said, since 2012.
Right.
Now we're 8 years later, and we're still talking about rehabbing. So
Right.
does you guys want to move forward and let's do a big nice thing together and work together, or not? But if we're just going to say, you know, the board's not, we either have to move forward with this or we have to put it on hold, but it's going to.
So I'm confused, are we still talking about two different pools?
No,
or
we
just
would be
one?
talking about one pool,
At the
yes.
school.
That would
No,
be,
and not necessarily at the school, possibly where
Where's that for the outdoor?
where the outdoor pool is now.
But then it wouldn't be used year-round.
yes.
Yes,
Being
it could be, yeah.
partially enclosed, it would,
Yeah.
part would
I see.
Right.
it would be used year-round, 7 days a week. You would hire
Okay.
somebody to oversee it, sell it, run it like a business, whether it be an authority. We have 2 council members, 2 school board members, residents at large, as Mr. Dilo recommended.
well, I'm thinking that's at least one possibility, is to consider an authority.
Right.
The other possibility is the New Brighton model, I think, where the school board runs it alone and probably rents it out to the borough during the summer, not sure.
I
Yeah.
did speak with Mr. Albany from New Brighton a few hours ago, and New Brighton at one time was partnered with the school, but he's gonna give me some of the paperwork. The school took it, and I'm gonna reach out to the school district and just get some more information and report back to.
And there's a lot of devil in the details in those type of arrangements that are difficult. I mean, we can't even begin to discuss those tonight, and I don't know what flexibility the school board would have in, in delaying some of their commitments to a new pool. But I think it makes sense. Mr. Magdor, as you mentioned, I think we would be, I think we would not be doing our job as a community if we did not consider, bringing these together. Spending multi-millions of dollars on 2 pools that are a couple hundred yards apart, seems to me.
Unless I'm mistaken, wasn't the price for whatever we were looking at with the outdoor pool back in 2012 over $1 million?
Oh, it was like 4 million,
Yeah.
4 to 5. Jared, you were on that, right?
So the consultant that came back to do the full gut out and redo, and that was with the splash pad. There are certain things we could add or take off, but It was right around 1.5.
And did that include redoing the bathhouse, or was that just the pool?
It was mainly just the pool. They had some stuff. It wasn't like, they weren't taking down the bathhouse and redoing it. They were going to rehab it as is and make it ADA accessible. So there were some components, and it wasn't like they were taking that building. They were just gonna kind of rehab that building, but gut out the pool completely. It was gonna be a zero entry with a splash pad, all that kind of stuff. But it was right around $1.5 million.
I thought it was higher than that, Jared, but I don't have the document.
There was two estimates. One was for about $1.5 million, another one was for a little over $3 million, which included all the bells and whistles with the bathhouse and the pool.
Yeah, but I think the one we were looking at was the one.
Yeah, there was
we were
two
taking.
estimates
Right.
in there, 'cause it should be still upstairs. So.
And how is
Yeah,
the school pool to be funded? Is that a bond?
Well,
Is
there,
that what you were talking about?
Mr. Thomas.
Yeah, I didn't hear your question.
The funding, how is the pool, the school pool, how is that projected to be funded?
So we took out, well, 2 bonds. So we took out a bond about 3 months ago. They did a bond issue, and that was covering part of phase 1. And then we just agreed to take out another bond this past week, and that's going to hopefully cover if we agree to phase 2, which is the actual pool. We haven't voted on that yet, but since we already committed to phase 1, we're going to have to finish phase 2. But it's through bonds. I mean, right now is the best time.
It's an all-time low interest rate.
What is
Yeah, if you wanna
the
take-
interest?
Adam, do you have any idea?
No.
I only know that from.
I don't know exact number, but I just know it's really
Rates
low.
are.
Yeah,
Don't know.
what's that?
There's no way to know that.
Yeah,
But it's 1% plus. Pretty low.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It just depends whenever you file the paperwork, and it can fluctuate.
Prime interest is what, 5%, and you get bonds less than 5%? You would know?
Yeah. I mean, it's very low right now.
And so presumably we would do the same thing?
I would think we would have to. However, I think there are other things that we could take a look at with the park to add to it. You know, I had thought about that pavilion and converting that into a facility that can be utilized year-round in the same manner that 2 Mile Run is used. So if we were able to do a project with the pool and then have the money to include a project for that pavilion there, I think would be very beneficial to the borough as well. Now, those are just my thoughts, whether or
And that's
not.
something we might be able to get a grant for.
Well, whatever the case might be, especially if we're doing something,
If we have the money.
yeah, if we're doing a, yeah,
Right,
especially if we're doing a big project
right,
with the pool,
right.
we'd probably be, better positioned to get
Yeah.
to get some type of matching grant. And I know it's a lot to think about, and, you know, sometimes great minds take a little while to come up with what
Now,
seems
would
to
the
be
pool-
reasonable
Was
ideas.
the pool being closed year-round or just in the
That
summertime?
pool would be open year-round.
No, she means it,
No.
like the enclosure.
Oh, the
enclosure.
enclosure?
There's 1 or 2, like New Brighton's actually opens. A couple of the other ones that we looked at open. Some of them are an indoor, and you go through some type of gate, or and then you have an outdoor area as well for summer use. So I mean, there's a lot. That's where Adam, like was saying, as far as your designs, there's countless, you know, what the school, what to fit their needs as well. So
But the pool itself would be used year-round.
Year-round,
Yeah.
could be used year-round.
So I think the thing that I need to let Dr. Rowe know is, in the morning, is, you know, to not hold the school district up if we
Yeah,
have,
we
and again, it's kind of the cart before the horse. We don't know what, we have no idea. The school does, they have an idea where they're at funding-wise. We don't.
But
We haven't,
does-
so.
My other question is, and I'm, like, what would the time frame be from the school district standpoint? Like, how soon would they need to know? Because again, this isn't going to be something that we're gonna decide at the next meeting either, because we'll have to take a look at, you know, what's it gonna cost to have someone come in and do a design and things like that, and that's going to take time. And
Well, one thing you have to look at, though, it's not just to redo the borough's pool. You would have to look at incorporating a total cost. So there's 2 costs here. What's it gonna do just to do our pool alone, the outdoor pool? You stay on your own schedule, we get our pool done. And then what type of cost is it to do what we're talking about, a hybrid.
Together, right.
Right, so there's two costs. I think what Dr. Rowe's looking for is this something the borough is willing to explore? If not, cut the school loose, let them do their thing, without us holding you up.
Well, and I will say, from my opinion, it really,
You have to explore it.
I think we have to explore, because it's no harm exploring it to see if it's reasonable. But again, I don't want to put the school district behind the 8 ball if we take too much time. Like, I guess I would like to know a time frame that the school district would like some answers, because this isn't going to be something that, that we're gonna have answers to within the next month or two.
Well, I suggest we let Dan explore that with the superintendent, school
Yeah.
superintendent,
Yeah.
and come back and continue the report.
So real quick, the only problem to piggyback that is basically we're up on the gun with, if we want to hit our project, it's supposed to start, like she said, I thought it was the beginning of April.
March
that-
15th.
Yeah, something like that, they're gonna start phase 1.
Sure.
So put it on hold means that we can't hit our deadlines for this.
Right.
So if we vote on Thursday and say we're gonna work with the borough and put this on hold, we're basically telling everybody that's in favor of us doing this project that they have to wait a full year. 'Cause we're not gonna be able to hit the timeline. So we're on the gun right now to
Yeah,
say, if we put it on hold, then this is all done. Whether it works or not, it's done until next year. So there's a
Well,
lot
and
of
that's,
moving
so
parts
that's,
there.
and again, that's my concern for the
Yeah.
school
Yeah,
district.
and You're
I
not gonna
mean,
put this together in a short period of time to have a council vote.
right.
To think you would do this within 2 or 3 months would be pretty naive.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think we would have
Jared,
any solid.
I know you just got on, but do you remember the total, it's probably what, 8, 10, 12 months for the studies that you had at the school? Do you have any idea what the turnaround time was on those?
I don't.
No.
I mean, I know,
Studies-
yeah, they had the engineers and all that.
Yeah,
and
they
there's
usually take
different
about
times.
6 months
Yeah.
for.
Well, the other item that Mr. Dida is important to decide who would take ownership of this, manage it. Would it be us, the school board, or the community?
What would it look like?
Or what that would look, a concept of that,
And that would have to develop
The
as we
administrative
are,
concept.
the management of the.
Yeah.
right.
And who, ownership, and would it be some sort of a
Lot of
authority, or would it be a
Right.
school owned, like you do in New Brighton, with the borough, I mean, those are the things that need to be worked out,
So-
and the devil is in the details on those things,
Yes.
Jim Brady just called in.
Go ahead,
Jim?
I finally got signal again, so I just pulled over since I got decent signal.
Sorry.
And I missed most of your conversation, unfortunately, but really good. And she briefed me on this afternoon, so I got, the basic gist of what the school board is doing. And one of the things, I guess, have you spoken about, because any pool with the high school is a Brighton Township, Beaver, Vanport, Bridgewater, all that community is taxed to support that pool. So if this becomes a community kind of pool, this isn't just Beaver in the school district. This is Beaver, Bridgewater, Brighton Township, and Vanport that would all need to be involved to make this a community, where everybody would use this pool. Because to be honest, the number the chief gave me is $4 million. I don't know if Jared has a better number, but to put that kind of money into a pool that's not used by the whole community is kind of silly, and it's going to kill our pool. There's no way we can ask the taxpayers to build 2 pools within 200 yards of each other.
Well, I agree.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So this has to be looked at from a Brighton Township, who, as far as I know, they don't have a public pool, nor does Vanport, nor does Bridgewater. This needs to be looked at as kind of a regional.
But that, what if the pool is on Beaver Borough property? That's gonna be,
I would imagine the solicitor could work that out pretty simply. That's the least of your problems.
Jim, it's Dan. We couldn't get all the communities to agree on an SRO, so now we're gonna try to get.
That's exactly what I'm hearing. So maybe where I was thinking with this conversation is to have you, Dan, kind of within the next 2 weeks for the next meeting, is talk to the other communities, see if there's any interest at all. Because I guess, for Jared,
So
Jim,
this,
Roll call.
so this is what I'm gonna suggest. I think first Dan's gonna need to have a conversation with Dr. Rowe to see what their expectation is with time. Because at the end of the day, you know, Adam's already stated, you know, a study would take 6 months. Well, by the time we get to the study, it could be June. And now, you know, study takes 6 months, we're in the middle of next winter, beginning of next year, and, you know, I'm not sure, I would assume that the school district's going to want probably more solid answers, which we're not gonna be able to provide with more details and research and with what this would entail.
Well, with all due respect, dear Sheldon, I don't think the school board thought this through very well. They kind of did this in a vacuum. I don't remember anything being in the newspaper that we were having a study done for a new pool at the high school.
Well, they've been talking, I mean, I've been attending the school board meetings pretty consistently, Jim, for the last 3 years, and they've certainly talked about it probably at every meeting. So, I mean, this is...
They did a study and they budgeted $4 million to do that.
Yeah, I mean, this has been, I can't tell you how many studies they've done, but I know community members, especially from the swim team, have done a lot of fundraisers, raising, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh, don't worry that. That's all Anthony's friends. So
But,
that was just to keep it going. That was like a Band-Aid, that money. That wasn't for a new pool.
yeah, as far as what exact studies were conducted, I have no idea, but I have to be honest with you, I mean, through the meetings I've attended, they've been very detailed about what needed done with the pool and the issues with the pool and the cost of it and things like that, where they were trying to find out what was most cost effective, which took time, and, you know,
So in all
from...
the meetings you attended, is this now a regional pool, or is this just for the student body?
I mean, I can only, I have no idea what their future intentions are with the pool.
They want to build it year-round for the community.
I mean, what was discussed was, how do they salvage the pool so they can continue to have a swim team for their student body? Which should have been their focus, since it's the school district. But now,
$4 million is not a new pool, $4 million is just rebuilding what they have.
We can't answer that, Joe. We have no idea. I mean,
Yeah,
Jared's here,
It's
but
new, it's brand new.
it's brand new, but
But the
it's,
Band-Aid pool was only gonna be like
Well,
500,000.
you
That's just the
know,
Band-Aid.
I do know this, I know,
I guess I'm confused here. Why didn't, what was discussed?
so, at the school board meetings?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so the feasibility of, do they refurbish the pool, or do they completely redo the pool, which they've decided to redo the pool, because from my understanding, and don't quote me on this, but from my understanding, being at the meeting, they were talking about this, was the fact that they could refurbish the pool, however, they weren't, the person or the company constructing or refurbishing the pool weren't going to guarantee the work beyond its conclusion because of the shape the pool is in. So they were either going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars for work that wasn't going to be guaranteed, or they were going to redo the pool for whatever the cost is, and have it done right and have the work guaranteed. So, I mean, and I'm sure that took time. Like Adam said, I mean, just this one study that we are looking at, it could take 6 months. But I can't go into details of exactly what they did. I just know that every school board meeting I've been attending, probably for the last 3 years, have discussed the pool at some point.
Well, I think we gotta have somebody come and brief us at our next meeting as to exactly what they're doing and when they're gonna do it and how much it costs, how they're funding it.
Right.
Because this is very likely gonna kill our pool.
Well, and that's, it's an indoor pool. I mean, both of these pools have existed for years. So I don't think one pool is gonna kill the other.
Put $4 million into one and then decide you're gonna put money
Well, it's two different entities. I mean, you have the borough who has a pool, and you have the school district that have a pool, so.
Well, the school district represents a whole region, and it's the same tax base, it's the same people.
Right, and that's why we have to make a decision on our pool ourselves with the community, with the borough.
Not when you're building a brand new pool right next to it, you have to look at the whole picture.
I am looking at the whole picture. That's why, you know, I think and that's the question as council we're gonna have to answer. Is it reasonable to look doing a project together? If not, either way, we have to do something with our outdoor pool. We own that. So we're either going to take a look at refurbishing it, if it can be refurbished, or redoing the pool itself. I mean, those are our two options, or closing it. And again, I'm not recommending we close it. I'm just saying that's an option. Like, do we close it? And the other thing we have to...
But you have a brand new one, 200 yards away.
Yeah, but
That's gotta be
we would have nothing to do with that, though.
To do this, I'm just amazed that we never thought about this before. And now all of a sudden, the school board's a year ahead of us.
Well, you know,
All we can do at this point is I can talk to Dr. Rowe, try to gather more facts and report back to council at the next meeting. I mean, we're going in circles now.
Well, let's get somebody to come brief us who is intimate with this decision. That's what we need for next meeting.
well, I don't understand what that has to do with our situation, though. I mean,
Has everything to do.
well, not really. I mean, because we still have to do something with our outdoor pool, Jim. So if the school district moves forward and they reconstruct their indoor pool, we still have to make a decision, what are we going to do with the outdoor pool? We either are going to put the money into it to fix it or close it. If we close it, we still have to do something with that property. We can't just let an empty pool sit there. So, I mean, either way we look, it's going to be an expensive project, no question about it.
Yeah, but I think if you take their $4 million and put it towards our pool and make one big project out of it, that to me makes all the more sense.
Well, and that's what we're trying to figure out.
That's what we're talking about.
But you have to also include Township and Bridgewater and these other folks, because they have a right to that pool because of the school board.
They already have a right to the pool,
So
though.
Jim, they have the voice of the school board. That's their avenue through that. Not going through the township, not going through Vanport or Bridgewater, it's through the school board. Because that's how that's being funded, through their taxpayers.
I agree.
Yeah, so,
It wouldn't be a Beaver and school board pool only, it's the whole region.
It always has been.
well, the school district is the whole region.
Correct.
So, I mean, if the school district's connected to it, it's gonna be the entire region anyway.
We just need to move on.
Yeah.
So,
Well, let's see what happens in 2 weeks, let's get more detail.
okay,
All right, Jim, you want to stay on, or you gonna?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else really, is there anything else on the agenda for me?
No.
When I continue on there, I won't have service in a while.
Now, get driving, be careful, and we'll keep you posted.
we were
Thank you.
thinking about an amusement park.
Oh, John.
Don't call back.
Yeah, right.
Shut your phone off.
I'm kidding.
Do
I'm
you
kidding.
saying I'm gonna
I
try
kid.
to call, I'm gonna try.
Is it unreasonable though for us, I mean, I don't know where the conversation on the school pool
Well, I
has
think-
been, but is it unreasonable for us to see if it's even doable for them to wait to give us?
Well,
That's
that's
what
what
I need to let her-
that's what I asked
We
Dan to
shouldn't be
do.
trying to rush something.
No,
So
we
here's-
can't.
Here's what I suggest we do. Ask what their time frame is.
Yeah, it's
But I think
exactly
we
what I
still
said.
need
Yeah.
to commit funds from the borough to conduct a feasibility
Yes.
study on
Yeah.
3 scenarios: rehab, completely new, and a joint venture with the school. Those 3 scenarios you can do in one feasibility study. You get 3 different estimates, and then we can decide where we're gonna go from there.
Exactly,
But that's gonna take about 6 months.
yeah.
I don't know if it will take that long.
It will take that long if you have 3 different scenarios. You have to work with the school board on the
I
third
mean,
scenario.
on engineering design, yes, I agree with you, but a feasibility study, I don't think takes.
They do
that long.
engineering and feasibility studies. That's what they have to do. They have to
The
come in,
whole
they have to
thing.
bring in structural engineers, electrical engineers.
Yeah.
All of that in order to state what the state of the structure is. I do feasibility studies all the time in the campus. That's what I do.
And we have to keep in mind
Takes-
too, the ADA compliance is going to be a
It's
part of
gonna
that
be-
study.
it's-
That's absolutely true.
And it all depends on the firm you are, because firms, they
It's
might have
not.
their own engineers in-house. If they don't, they have to
Right.
subcontract, you have to work around it. It takes time.
Well, The DCNR works with recommends a number of companies. There are very limited companies that they recommend to do feasibility studies on community pools that they consider acceptable if you're applying for a grant. Now, we wouldn't necessarily, we might apply for a grant for this, to at least pay for, you know, a smidgen of it, but we'd have to use one of those companies.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's something further
And
down the road.
I can get a list from her.
And that's, yeah, that'll be
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
And then, you know, first thing first is we need to understand, we need to gain an understanding of what the school district's looking at, time-wise. Because we need to be fair to them, because we're not in a rush right now.
Well, we
Well,
can't.
the time's already
But-
over, Sean. If we, I mean, they're gonna possibly call a meeting based on what you guys decide tonight.
We
Yeah.
can't
If that
decide
meeting's not
tonight.
called, then they're not gonna be, the contractor needs to know within the next week whether it's a go or not. So
Chair, we
that-
can't make a decision tonight.
No
You know
way.
that.
I
This is
understand that,
working.
but they were looking for some kind of a consensus if you guys would entertain looking at a new facility.
Well, I'm.
Yeah, that's what you're
yeah,
saying.
That's what I just said,
yeah,
we'll entertain
yeah.
it. We need 6 months, because
Yeah.
we need to hire a firm to do that feasibility study.
Right.
We're not gonna be able to make an answer until then. We can't just sit here and say, all right, well, let's go for it, because we have no clue what that cost
Yeah,
is
we
gonna
have
be,
no
whether
idea.
it's by ourselves
Right.
or with a joint venture with the school. We need to take that time to do
And
that.
like Adam's saying, a joint venture, we don't know what it's gonna look like, so there, let's just say let's just say tonight we agreed on it, it's still gonna take 6 or 8 months for a firm to pull together what this indoor-outdoor whole concept would look like, so
Yeah.
that's a whole nother, but that's what, Adam, you're saying, correct, to do all three at one time.
Right.
So we could have a solid answer, but again, then the school's gonna have some buy-in on the third concept
Yeah.
of what's gonna be the needs to fit the school as well. So the first two are on us, but the third concept would need a lot of input from the school to, you know, your athletic group, I don't know what you need as far as, you know, an indoor structure, but, so there's, that third one is what's really gonna be,
Mhm.
is what you're looking. Yeah, we didn't realize your start date was,
March 15th.
right. Well, I'll pass that back to Dr. Rowe either
Yeah.
tonight or first thing tomorrow morning, and
Yeah,
then you guys.
And then, yeah. And again, I mean, from our standpoint, I don't think there's any harm to see if it's reasonable.
Well, we have to.
Yeah, well, we have to.
Even
because
if
we
you
have
guys
to
do your own thing, we
yeah.
still need to figure out.
No,
what
we
we're
have to
going
do
with our-
something with the pool,
With the pool,
so. And Mr. Thomas, thank you for the
Yeah.
information,
yeah,
and we really appreciate it.
no problem.
Any other comments? Okay, well, it should be interesting in our next meeting, maybe.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on to reports. I'm not sure. Cog, is there anything with?
I never heard back from Alex about attending a COG meeting, so I obviously didn't go.
Okay. Civil Service Commission, Zoning Hearing Board, Planning Commission, Tree Commission. Yes,
If I
sir.
may,
Yes,
I
sir.
attended the planning commission meeting
Yes.
last week, I guess it was. And the planning commission has on their agenda to look at some of the things that we had talked about here.
Mhm.
Such as, you know, the pool, the Shaw Park Pavilion.
Yes.
And I think we need to coordinate that make sure that's well coordinated. And Dan, I think you had a discussion with Kerry McDougal in the meantime.
Plus, on my other report, I actually met with members of the planning commission Monday and did a walkthrough of this building.
Okay. I just think we need to make sure that if we want them involved, we ought to make sure that we include them
Sure.
as a valuable part of the discussion.
Yep.
Because I know they do have this on their agenda as
Yep.
some of the assignments.
Right. Tree Commission. Yes, ma'am.
Chris King and I attended the tree commission meeting last night, and there are a couple things. First of all, for the last 2 meetings, this door has been unlocked.
Yep.
We're not sure for how long.
Yeah, Phil, there was a church group that came in Sunday morning that used this room, and they didn't lock it when they left. Nobody was in here Monday until the evening when you were. So we got it through the camera, we figured it out. And Debbie got back to Phil to tell him thanks for making us aware of it.
Okay.
Yep.
But it was that way in January too.
Yeah, they use it on the Sundays, the church.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's that.
Okay.
But yeah, we got it though.
Okay.
Yep.
Second issue, Second issue was, I think at our last meeting, Dan, you mentioned that you and Mark Rom had been looking at the trees on Third Street and there were concerns about the roots pushing up the bricks.
Yes.
The tree commission would really like to be part of that conversation because as they pointed out, there are other reasons why those bricks are popping up that have nothing to do with the tree roots. And it may be that it's the way that the streetscape, the underlying cement was laid, that there's some gaps between, since I wasn't around for that, I don't know, but Nancy Lynette mentioned this, that you can see where sometimes the bricks get pushed up because there's this gap, and with the freeze and thaw, that pushes the bricks up, has nothing to do with the roots. They don't
How
want.
does she know that for sure, though?
She was part of the original tree commission with Phil, and they were part of the streetscape project when they put in the concrete boxes and the trees. And they know how that was constructed, and that's what she said. And you can see it out there when you see some of these perpendicular.
She was one of the landscape architects.
Right.
Sorry, because I have it here in my notes. Actually, I have one of my notes to make a thing. Our road guys, when they were putting the planters in, when they actually pulled the bricks up, there were roots. Not saying every single instance, but some of the roots did actually start to push up the sidewalk. Now, not saying every spot you see the roots up, might be a combination of both.
Okay, well, they really would prefer, they don't want any of those trees taken out because of roots until they have a chance to assess it. It may just mean that they need to replace, or they need to reset the brick somehow. There are some trees, a couple trees out here that they do want to replace because they're dying.
Yeah,
But they don't want to replace good trees without them knowing which ones, and maybe, Mark can put ribbons around them or
We already
something.
have, that's part of my notes here, we have 6 to 7 dead trees. They were reviewed by Mark Braun. They're mostly ash trees, and they're slated to be removed. We have the tree boxes in place, and again, they have to be removed because they are dead. Those are 6 to 7 that Mark actually identified in the business district.
It would be good to coordinate this with the tree commission. They're kind of concerned, they want to make sure that good trees aren't being taken out, that's all.
Right, but Mark Braun is their guy.
He's certified, right?
Yeah, Mark's their guy.
He's certified.
They recommended Mark. So I'm going with who they
Again,
recommended.
Can you just try and work with them?
No,
You know what, I have an issue with that, because we tried to work with them a long time, and they always pushed us away. We're
Well,
taking
I
the
think in
initiative,
this
we
case-
hired a certified arborist to do work in the street, and that's what they're doing.
They
I think in this
recommended
case,
Mark.
though, I agree with what Alex says. Nancy Lynette was on the ground floor and when we did this streetscape. And she was the one that recommended, I think, a lot of the way the trees, the different types of trees. I think that's great we use that.
Mark Braun, that's what he
But I think
recommended.
we need some input from her
It would be really good.
on
to
what
include
trees go in
Nancy.
those places.
It would really be good.
So
to-
I guess
They
my
put
only-
they put a lot of input and design, and if you notice, they're not all the same trees, obviously.
Mhm.
And there was a reason why they did that.
Right.
And I think that's, my only concern is we take their recommendation on what trees we put in instead of the.
Well, they're
tree
happy to
quality.
work with Mark on
Yeah.
this, and they're happy to work with the borough
Right.
workers on this.
Sure.
It's just, they would like to be part of the conversation.
It's really great that we have her back
It is
because she
great.
was in when this was.
It is great. She's
constructed.
an excellent resource.
And that was one of the benefits of our streetscape is we do have different trees as compared to some of the communities where you go to, they're all the same, all uniform.
Right, right.
But that was done for many different
Well,
reasons.
it's another conversation too. Some of the trees have actually outgrown the tree boxes and is with the size and diameter and also getting up into the wires, and so it's something, the whole business district needs to be reevaluated on the trees. But again, Mark identified these trees back in October, November of last year when they were still, but the reason we didn't take them out then was because of the Christmas lights, we'd have big gaps, so we left the dead trees in over the winter to be taken out so new trees can be replanted. They're actually gonna probably start within the next few weeks because those tree boxes, one tree box takes 3 days. So right there, you have a month worth of work to do just to replace the 7 tree boxes of the dead trees that have been identified.
So what's the next step here, folks?
The next step is our guys are gonna continue to do what was scheduled. They're gonna replace the 7 dead trees, the boxes. And we did reach out, if I remember correctly, Mr. Colazenzo asking what trees last year, hey, we're taking these 7, we made them aware that 7 trees are coming out. Give us a recommendation of the trees to go back in. Is that accurate?
Mm-hmm.
So the 7 dead trees are gonna be replaced.
Yes.
But what about the areas where the concrete's being, or the bricks are being pushed up, which makes it a safety hazard for
Correct.
pedestrians?
We're
and
gonna have Brent reevaluate that, and then we can have, Ms. Lynette get with Brent, we'll put those two in contact, and they can take a look at these different areas, that way they can
Okay.
identify. And if it is the tree, then they'll have to make some arrangements to, not arrangements, but some type of game plan to get
So
that.
at the end of the day, just throwing this out there in case it happens, there's a disagreement between those two, whose recommendation are we going with? Will it be Mr. Rollins or Ms. Lynette's?
Well, it's gonna be Mr. Rollins, that's who they recommend, that's the Shade Tree Commission's arborist who we've paid for the last 20 years.
And I'm not saying, I'm just saying, there could be a disagreement, and I wanna make sure that we know what that process is. Okay. Well, and that's why I
It's
wanna know.
recommendations
yeah,
from
yeah,
both, but it's a
yeah.
permanent decision
Right.
what route to take with that.
Okay.
Did you get the recommendation what type of trees, or
No.
has that been resolved?
No.
To go back, we know there's 7 trees coming down.
Yeah, I mean, again, too, the Shade Tree Commission or the Parks, River Road, this out here is the business district, but also, too, we have to, you know, we've all discussed it, use some common sense, we're not gonna put sequoias and redwoods on the main street. Some of these trees have outgrown, and we have to do some forward thinking. Some of these trees they're probably a healthy tree and are gonna have to come out because they've outgrown the tree box, they're busting up the electrical and everything else inside the box itself, and they're outgrowing them. So some of the old boxes are made of wood.
Okay, well, I'll give you Nancy's cell phone so that you can get in touch with her. Okay.
Any more on the tree commission?
No.
Thank you. Code enforcement officer report.
Nothing to report.
And Trevor and Forth is looking
Better.
better.
Yeah, that,
Yeah,
we may have to take further action
yeah.
there. Just for your information, I've called, the responsible people every day this week, or last week rather, and they haven't returned my calls. Now, they may be ill, they may be sick, I'm getting a little worried. They haven't been over there because the weather's been cold,
Yeah, sure.
and they're trying to do it themselves, but we may get to a point, I want to talk to Garen about it, what our next step is going to be.
Okay.
You know, I hate to do
No, I
that,
understand. I mean, it's
We gotta keep
been a
moving.
reasonable amount of time.
Right, we
so.
did give them extension.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's been quite a while. That's
Yeah,
been
almost a year.
Yeah. and-
Yeah, last spring.
When she came into the council.
Yeah.
They claim that they have a buyer, but the buyer says that he wants it all cleaned out before he purchases.
I don't blame them.
However, I have my doubts whether there is a buyer or
I
not.
do.
Yeah, so.
So we'll keep chipping away.
All right, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Historical Architectural Review Board. Anything, Mr. Dilo?
I'll make a comment.
Yes, sir.
The HARB is going to meet on Monday, Monday the 2nd at 7 PM. And the HARB chair has asked all members to submit their thoughts on the historical preservation plan that was guidelines that were presented through the State Historic Museum Commission. And those will be discussed with the idea of getting a recommendation to council in the not too distant future. Now, we've already been going at this for about 3 years, and so not too distant future.
Mr. Rice and I have played sort of email tag, so.
Have you, so you're informed on it? And,
Well, he wants to have a discussion with me, so I would assume
Okay.
that it was something in regards to that,
Okay,
so.
well, this is a committee, he's assigned subcommittees and requested those subcommittee reports be presented at the HARB meeting next Monday
Okay,
at 7 o'clock.
all right. Municipal Authority? Anything?
Just continuing on with major projects associated with water and sewer, and we've got a couple of major projects that are currently being considered, you know, how to fund those and how to move forward on them. It's an ongoing topic.
Does the school district have any water lines that they?
They actually do.
I guess that was a big. Anyway, I was kidding. Moving on to council committee reports, public safety, code enforcement, toll registration.
We're gonna discuss something, we don't have our solicitor here right now, so, next week, maybe the next work session, we will discuss, some of the issues that we talked about in the last council meeting.
Okay. So I do want to make a quick comment on the rental registration. I think it's going very well. And despite, there's some disagreements with some things, and that's going to happen, especially when you have over 600 rental properties that are going to be inspected. First of all, I think
a lot more than that too, Sean.
Yeah, and I think we're doing a tremendous job getting into these apartments and inspecting them and making sure that, one, they're safe for the people running them, and two, I do want to say that I believe it also helps protect the owner themselves. That way, if they're keeping up to code, they're less liable to different lawsuits. And I'm not a rental property owner, but I can imagine that there are different things that could be costly for the owner. So, I think it's going well, and Mr. Sebastian, I think.
How many to date have we registered?
Total, right now, the number registered is 635, the inspections done is 367, and re-inspects were 187.
That's for 2019.
Right.
I don't have the February numbers in yet. January, we did 8 registered, 10 inspections, and 17 re-inspections, but February's been a lot
So those numbers are a tad.
more, yeah.
Yeah, tad higher.
So I think it's going well.
And so you can see that we're working on it. The borough offices.
Yeah, they're doing, I think they're doing a great job. And the other thing is,
I think you can see that there's been a lot of really good things happen in terms of code enforcement and rental registration, and in the last 5 years.
I agree with
It
you.
shows in the town, it's not by accident, it's a result of efforts by, council and borough manager to initiate these projects, and to have our code enforcement inspectors, they're operating, the town is looking better and better all the time.
And I will say that there's a rental property across the street from me, and I was speaking to the homeowner, and he was saying it was nice to have a conversation and be made aware of some of the things that he needed to have corrected, which were GFIs, things like that.
Simple things we can thank Rick and George for doing
So, again, I think it's going well, and when those letters are sent, I do want to make it clear too that, and just like when Rick leaves a letter or a notice for a property owner, those things are, the borough is willing to work with those people. It's not a hard deadline where something needs to be fixed, and I think sometimes just communicating will always be the key to have a happy ending, and certainly I think that will happen.
I think Mr. Thomas brought up a good point tonight in terms of making sure we understand an appeals process.
Yeah, absolutely, that was a good
Should
point.
there be a
Yes,
dispute?
I agree.
So
I agree.
we think we need to move forward.
And that's something we need to talk about. Absolutely. Finance. We're gonna find highways.
Mr. Buckalino's.
Yeah, he's, which I will say, I did see that the project's done, what street is it? Canal Street.
Canal.
Is,
It's underway.
Yeah, it's underway.
That's
so.
moving along real well.
It is, it is.
They're doing a nice job.
And again, I have to compliment the workers, because they really do clean up the area after the day of work is done. And, I'm really thankful for that, and I'm sure that our community members are also. We don't have equipment strewn throughout our parks and things like that. I mean, it's all organized and it's,
I would like to say one
attractive,
thing
but
as we move forward with looking at roads that need attention this year. Don't forget the third ward. The third ward has been neglected the last couple of years. Realize we have a lot of other higher priority projects, but we've got some roads that do need fixed in the third ward too. So please keep us in mind, as those of you who put together the to-do list need to remember the third ward.
We will remember that. All right, general government,
I have nothing else to report.
recreation?
I think we talked a lot about it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Manager, secretary report.
The other thing that I wanted to bring, you're gonna have a motion at the next meeting in reference to Brian Kozlowski. Brian works for the Highway Department, does an excellent job. The last year, we took Brian Grove and Chris Trent. They were bumped up to Apprentice 2. We waited, it's budgeted for, so this would take Brian Kozlowski from Apprentice 1 to Apprentice 2. So we'd like to do that to keep pace. And, you know, he deserves it, he's earned it. And so there'll be a motion in your council packet from that.
And I will say this, that I always hear about the two Brians when I talk to different community members. So I think that's a really good thing when you have workers from your road department who are recognized by community members for being nice and courteous. So that's a good thing.
That's it.
President's report, I really don't have anything to report, just real quickly. Are we still looking at doing the bricks for the police officers who have served and passed away?
That's funny, because this morning that was sent off. We went over that this morning, and we got it up to date. It's going to go over to Diagardi, unless it's already there. But they should have it probably within the next day or two.
Where are these bricks going to go?
In front of the police department and the lamp post for all the officers that have worked here and retired. Yes.
And unfortunately, there was 2 or 3 within the last year and a half that passed. So that's a nice tribute to them. So I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. Mayor Hamilton?
I have nothing else to report.
Chief, do you have anything else?
Nothing.
Fire Department? Emergency Management Coordinator, which, yes ma'am, sorry.
I wondered if we might put out something on the Borough website as to what residents might think about in terms of preparation for a pandemic. We all know that there's a coronavirus that is spreading globally, and while the United States has not been hit as many other countries have been, as the CDC and others are warning, it's probably only a matter of time before things start to perhaps get a little bit worse here. I'm not sure what the county's advice on this is. I haven't been able to find anything on their website about it. And I just wondered if maybe we would want to just put out a checklist or something for people to consider about, you know, the 3 weeks of supplies that they might consider having in their home. Maybe people already know this, but you don't want to wait until the CDC and the government start issuing directives to be prepared.
Well, and I think that's a good idea. My only question.
I don't want to scare people.
Well, so my only concern is I would be interested to see if the county has done or is planning to do anything, and then maybe see what we can do to piggyback off of that, because my only concern would be to scare our residents as though we know something's going on in our community. And I know that sounds...
Let's remember the chemical fire in Rochester.
Yeah, I gotcha.
That wasn't exactly, you know, a perfectly executed.
Right, and that's why I'm saying
emergency
we
response.
need to check with the county as we did with that situation also, because they were in control of that. So, you know, I would think we check with the county and then and move forward from there. My only concern, like I said, is I don't want to create a panic, but I think it's a good idea, and I think it's well worth taking a look at for sure of things you should do. But
So far, I haven't seen any direction from the federal government, the state
None.
government,
Right.
county government, or local government. I think it would be very difficult for us to put something out that didn't, you know, go along, I think it's gotta go along with the, you know, federal government. I think they're, you know, it seems to me like they are now putting their thoughts together, and we don't know what those thoughts are.
Right.
I sent a piece to Sean and you guys.
Mhm.
Well, they just appropriated that money to come up with a plan, I guess.
That's exactly what I'm talking
Right.
about, yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing right now.
You can throw money at it, but there's nothing concrete as to how to respond.
Right. Because the other thing is, what would we know to suggest?
Oh,
Would be
you can look,
another-
you can go on webs, I mean, if you look on, if you just Google pandemic checklist or whatever, you can see those things. It's not, you know, it's
Yeah.
not, it's all the usual things, but it's basically 3 weeks of supplies.
Mhm.
It's, I just thought it would be nice for us to be proactive, that's all.
Mhm. Consider it. I don't disagree with you.
Well, is
Okay.
anybody going to contact the county, or is that a Jim Perini exercise? Since Jim's not
No,
here.
we could
There's nothing to contact, they would send us out and alert. I got the same thing you got, and that came from the Fusion Center.
Saying that
Just
something
saying,
was,
watch your travel, if you can avoid traveling on a plane, cancel flights, and just stuff that you read in USA Today when you go on the homepage. The same, I got this, actually the same thing, I'm not sure where you got that, I got the same.
My cruise isn't canceled, I'm going.
We'll drink Corona and you won't get the virus.
Avoid South Korea.
Take 3 weeks worth of
Avoid-
alcohol with you to the room.
Yeah. So they invited Corona beer.
okay. You know, we could check with the county, see if there's any type of plan or.
Well, this isn't really a plan, it's just
I
a
suggestion, I get where you're.
It's just
I
a
get what
reminder
you're
of
saying.
the things that you should have on hand, that's
Right.
all.
And if we do that, I don't think we don't mention coronavirus.
No, I just say any type of, and that's where I get nervous about
You can put
throwing
anything
fear
out
out there, like,
Right.
what are they expecting? You know, but I totally agree with you, I understand that, but how do we do that without creating a panic? Which, this is being recorded
Watch the
tonight,
news.
so,
Watch the news.
you know, we already talked about
It's already.
it. Yeah, so, but I think it's something we can further discuss, and we can even talk with Mr. Perini, or even reach out to our fire chief, Mr. Grosskopf.
Okay.
Engineer, which he's not here. And solicitor, of course, is not here, so. At this time, if there is no other new or old business, I will adjourn our meeting. Meeting adjourned.